I hit a wall in building my business when I started it in 2025. And it wasn't because AI was suddenly on the scene. It wasn't because, basically online marketing and online business has completely shifted in this last year compared to what it was like 6 or 7 years ago. And this whole time that I've been in the online business world, it wasn't because there was a large amount of economic uncertainty. And while all of those things are incredibly real, challenges that anyone building in 2025 and 2026 are facing, for me, the struggle of building my business had nothing to do with those things. There's something deeper going on that was stunting my ability to grow my business. From the very moment I said yes to entrepreneurship, I knew I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to serve people. I wanted to grow something that was real and sustainable for me to do. I wanted to forge my own path, do things my way, and I wanted to get that time freedom and financial freedom that everyone is looking for when they start to build an online business. I kept working at it and working at it and working at it, and I just was to the point where I was so exhausted and just feeling like I was going absolutely nowhere with this build. But I was doing something that I wanted, right? What I didn't realize until much later was that I was building my business on advice that was not at all built for me. It wasn't designed for me. It wasn't designed for my brain, my season of life. It wasn't anything that actually made sense for what would allow me to build something that was successful and sustainable. Best way that I can describe this is like as if I was building something based on a blueprint. Let's say it's kind of like a house, right? So the business is a house. Someone gave me this blueprint and I was sitting there and I was working on it and I was building it and I was trying to do it according to what their plan was, their version of what success is. And how to actually get there. And to my dismay, after I had spent months trying to build my business in this particular way, I discovered that I was building like this like really gaudy McMansion, maybe with like 20 bathrooms. And what I really wanted was the cute little like 3 bedroom, 2 bath English cottage with maybe a rose garden and a pottery shed, right? Like that's what I wanted to build. But I was taking this blueprint that someone else had given me and worked so hard to try to implement it when it wasn't even what I really wanted. And it wasn't something that actually fit um, my life and my mission for who I wanted to serve. And every minute I spent building my business, it felt like I was being productive, that I was doing something, that I was working towards my mission. And what I discovered was in reality, I was essentially abandoning myself. I was abandoning the mission that I had, the way I wanted to serve people. And I was completely moving in the opposite direction of where I wanted to go and why I was doing this in the first place. So today in this episode of Not Your Typical Solopreneur, I'm going to share 5 mistakes that can either set you back or set you in motion to build something that is just completely not what you wanted and completely unsustainable. They were mistakes that I made. They're mistakes that I've seen other founders make and mistakes that even some of my clients who are starting to build their businesses are already starting to make. And they're ones that I want to shine a light on because these are things that you can think about, evaluate, and decide for yourself what you might want to change so that your business can actually be truly sustainable. Now, this episode is going to be interactive, so to speak. So basically, there's going to be times in the episode where I'm going to ask you to do things like maybe grab a piece of paper and you're going to pause the podcast. You'll write some notes down or some different thoughts that you think will be helpful for you. I'm also going to have different resources that'll be in the show notes and that you can access either during the podcast or at the end of the episode. This episode is meant to be like a working episode. So get ready and prepared to actually start to work on your business in a positive way that's going to help you make it a little bit more sustainable. Okay, so are you ready? Because we're going to dive in now and we're going to start talking about what's kind of like really going on here. All right, so here's where I might be meeting you today. And yeah, I'd be curious to know too. You can always reach out to me, or even if you're listening to this episode right now, you can actually go to my Instagram and DM me some different thoughts if you'd like. You might be in this place where you feel like you're trying so hard, like you're efforting to your max, and then you feel like you're not really going anywhere. Or you're trying so hard and you're trying to be consistent, but that is so difficult for you to do because you might have a little bit of an unpredictable life, or you might have a capacity, a health condition, or a brain that just doesn't work in a really predictable way, or it fluctuates in your capacity, right? Oftentimes we think that we need to do more, right? Like, okay, I need to be more consistent. I need to put out more content. I need to try to get more leads. I need to do more of whatever I'm already doing, which is exactly how your brain is supposed to work, right? It has a concept and a model of how it thinks that online business should actually go, what is successful, what successful people actually do, and then it tries to basically have you do that. This is because the brain's first move is always to do what it already knows, and what it thinks, what it's predicting will actually get you success. So, oftentimes, the most common business advice and the advice that we often internalize is that, in particular, we need to be more consistent, right? And if we are falling short, if we're having a flare up, if we're just not able to produce the whatever standard of content or emails or whatever it is to market, like no wonder you're not actually successful, or you're not seeing the results that you want to see. You might be thinking things to yourself like, okay, maybe it's my offer, right? Like if I just fix my offer, if I have a new, then maybe that's what's going to help me actually move forward. And that's what's going to make my business more successful, and also then ultimately then offload me somehow, right? I'm not here to actually tell you like that advice is totally wrong and you shouldn't follow it, because there's actually kernels of truth kind of embedded in there, in those little sound bites that you hear all the time about what you should be doing with your business. Problem is that like no amount of extra effort and doubling down on what you're currently doing, which kind of sounds like maybe it's not working for you, no amount of effort going in that direction is going to change something, right? And also not change something that is fundamentally a foundation related issue, or like a blueprint related issue to how you are building your business. And I want to go back to this example of like you are building a house, right? And if you are thinking, I just got to do more and more and more fixing of the pipes, fixing of the floors, I got to redo the kitchen again, like maybe that's your offer or something, right? Like I got to redo the kitchen again, and maybe that is going to help make this an inhabitable place for me to live and that I enjoy living in. That's not going to solve the problem when your problem is that like your foundation is literally like crumbling beneath you and everything is falling apart. That's why the pipes are leaking all the time, is because your foundation isn't really even there holding it. And it's not going to fix the problem that you're building something that you don't even actually really want in the first place. In fact, just taking a blueprint from somebody who says, like this way is the only way, it's the most successful way that you're going to build a business that's actually going to make you money and give you the freedom that you want. Taking that exact blueprint from someone else is the same thing as taking that blueprint and then trying to copy and paste their dream house in their lived context or their understanding of what other people experience in their life, which may not include whatever your life looks like. And then you're trying to copy and paste that house onto a piece of land that is probably a lot more complicated to build around. Like maybe there's trees growing in these interesting spots and we can't really take those out, or maybe part of your land includes a swamp. I don't know, right? And you trying to build the exact house on that piece of land that just is not going to work, like that doesn't make any sense, right? And that's where building something that actually fits the season of your life, takes into account that your brain and body operate in a certain way, that is what is going to make your business more sustainable. Those things are the foundation of what building your business needs to be on. So in this episode, we're going to look at that foundation. I'm going to be sharing some ideas and concepts, and I want you to think about, what is your foundation? What is this blueprint that you're using to build? And that's what these 5 mistakes are, is just kind of like me shining a light on what are some of those like foundational issues where people start building unsustainable businesses. The tricky part is that they're not very obvious at first. They look like you're being really hardworking and responsible, that you're doing the right things. And this is why it is so hard to catch these things. Before I walk you through these 5 different mistakes, I just want to take a second. This is where we're going to get a little interactive. Okay. You can pull out a journal, a piece of paper. It could be also just like, I don't know, open up your notes app in your phone and just write some kind of like reflection notes. But I want to ask you a question, and I'd love for you to, after I've asked the question, to pause the podcast, do the reflection, and then come back so that we can kind of move on from there. And these are the things that I want you to hold on to as we move through the rest of this episode. Okay, so the first question that I want to ask you is if you do have a business right now, I want you to think about the last time a week in your business actually felt like it was energizing you or lighting you up. Okay, so just kind of like reflect back. When was there like this really good week where you actually felt like your business was giving you more life back than it was like taking away from your life? And I want you to think about that week. What were you doing? What was on your plate that week? And also, what wasn't on your plate that week? Some of these things are really helpful to start sifting through. Later in the episode, I'm going to share a resource that if this is something where you need to kind of like think a little bit more deeply on, then you'll have access to that. So just hang on to that for a moment. If you are about to start your business, then I think what I'd love for you to ask yourself in order to start building basically your business on a good foundation is I want you to think about essentially like imagine what your dream business looks like, right? What are you actually doing that day? Like a day in the life. What are you doing? What does the dream business look like? What are you working on? And then what are you not doing? Right. And I'd love for you to also maybe consider not only just like what's happening in the business, but what does your life look like too? So, are you spending more time with family? Are you giving yourself more time to be able to go to doctor's appointments, take care of family members that need you, maybe who are sick, who have disabilities, right? Like, what does that look like to you? And I want you to really paint that picture because those are all little clues and signals about what it is that you feel like is going to actually um, be a business that gives back to you. So, this is the moment where, if you'd like, you can pause the podcast and then come back when you're ready. Whatever you kind of came up with, I want you to hold that in your mind because we're going to take this kind of moving forward and you're going to kind of maybe add more things to what it is that you came up with. Okay, let's jump into mistake number one. This is something that I feel like was a big lesson for me personally is one mistake and one reason why you may have something that doesn't feel very sustainable to you is, or like in the instance, if you're like starting your business, right? Like you're just getting started, one thing that you need to look out for is abandoning yourself and the mission, the whole reason you even wanted to get into entrepreneurship and you traded that instead to chase performance, metrics, data, or just even like the building mechanics of the business. Like you decided you wanted to, I don't know, uh, create an online course because it was going to help a certain group of people and you wanted to sell that and the whole mission and dream you had was to for people to have access to this information so they could help themselves, right? And then suddenly you get lost into like what your vanity metrics are on Instagram or whether you're selling enough of something or whether like your landing page is converting or like all these little like metrics and conversions that are supposed to indicate the health and performance of your business and you kind of lost sight of what it is that you actually enjoy doing, the whole reason you wanted to do this in the first place, which was to maybe teach people, to help people, right? Something like that. And for me personally, this is especially true if you're like a high performer type person, focusing on things like metrics and performance, it makes you feel like, okay, that's what I should be working on because if my performance is better, then my outcomes will be better. And I think for me, I personally have learned that that is far from the truth, that focusing on what your mission is, what it is that truly lights you up, and then trying to work in ways that allow you to constantly be in contact with that, whether that is through your sales, through your marketing, through whatever, being able to connect with that mission and do what actually energizes you and lights you up. It's like instead of you being in a car and like driving it to, let's say, San Francisco, right? Like, and you're just going to drive all the way and not fill up and then go, wait, why didn't I make it to San Francisco? It's like, well, you never actually filled your tank, right? And like doing work and focusing on things that you think are going to get you there, but like the truth is making sure you have gas in your tank is actually what's going to get you there ultimately. Um, that's what I think is important to focus on as you're building your business. So whatever fuels you, gives you energy, allows you to keep coming back again and again is so important because building a business is really hard. Sometimes things don't work out the way that you thought they would work out. And being able to be connected to something that is intrinsically motivating, that allows you to more easily get back up when you've kind of fallen down, those things are so important. And being able to like always consistently kind of have your hand like holding on to whatever that is as you're continuing to do your build. As part of this, more practically speaking, what I would say is this is a great time to take a look at what it is that you actually do versus what actually lights you up. And I have a tool. It's like the Business Owner's Task Matrix, and you can download it. If you want, you can pause the episode. And if this feels like this is an area that you kind of need to focus on, you can open that up, maybe work on it, and then come back to finish the episode, or you can download it later. But it's in the show notes and you can grab that now. Basically, what this is kind of like, actually, it has like two sources. So I'm gonna talk about both. So I found this is a great book by Dan Martell called Buy Back Your Time. And it's about basically CEOs and how to better manage your time so that you can have a business that you love and that you can thrive in. And as part of that, it's understanding like what lights you up and what gets you revenue. And that's kind of like you have this like quadrant and you're trying to figure out like high revenue, high lights you up versus like no revenue and absolutely you hate, right? Like, and so this kind of helps you discern what you should be focusing on versus delegating and automating, et cetera, or just completely eliminating. And I like this version of the matrix because it's a little bit more in tune with helping you kind of figure out how to run your business because it's based on the Eisenhower matrix, which I kind of find to be like lacking some of that, like the tangibleness around, but then what do I do? Or how do I know how to put this in which box, right? So I like this matrix better and I've adapted it slightly to be just more accommodating for things that you may want to focus on in your business build. Let's talk about mistake number 2. So mistake number 2 is picking an offer type or like business model that really doesn't fit like how your brain works or the season of life that you're in, right? A lot of us will see so many different kinds of ads and promotional things about, oh, you should start a membership because of recurring revenue. It's the most sustainable model for online business. Or for example, you might hear like, you should do digital products because, you just like keep selling it over and over again and it's so easy, right? And while there's some like truth to some of these, things that we're seeing online and these like little marketing sound bites for that kind of stuff, if you pick a model that ends up being more time consuming than you really originally thought, or you pick a model or an offer type basically that might actually work for you, but you execute it in a way where now it's like so much effort, so much energy, so much time actually executing it, then it's not going to be sustainable, right? The flip side of it is not that it's like creating overwhelm or like it's cutting into the capacity, like limited or fluctuating capacity that you have. It could be that you've picked an offer type that is just not very stimulating to you and or stimulating an ongoing basis. So I think a lot about ADHD entrepreneurs in particular, where they feel like I have a million ideas or I have a million offers or, I keep bouncing around between all these things. That's a natural part of having ADHD and being an entrepreneur. And at the same time, too, it could fundamentally be that you have picked an offer type um, that you're trying to stick to, but actually doesn't make sense for you because just creating a digital product, for example, and only having one and having to sell that same thing over and over and over again, there's no novelty there. There's no like urgency. I don't know. There's nothing there that like actually is stimulating for your brain, right? And I know for me personally, that's a reason why I've decided to kind of switch into one-on-one coaching and kind of like reimagine how I want to use the membership that I have built. I know myself and I know my brain and I find it more stimulating and fascinating and I feel like I'm making a better difference when I'm working with people one-on-one. And that's because people present these different problems. And then because each person is unique, then I get to sit there and talk with them, understand it, and then problem solve with that unique individual, right? That's very stimulating for my brain. And it allows me to also then explore solutions of various kinds. So I get the opportunity to use my brain for creative problem solving, and it gives me permission to actually start going down rabbit holes and exploring things because I know that'll be beneficial to people. So I've chosen an offer concept that I know is going to be more sustainable for me because it lights me up, and it also is something that allows my brain to work in its most optimal way for me personally. So this is something that I'd love for you to kind of consider thinking about for yourself. Is the offer that I picked, or if you're about to start something, is the offer that I'm picking actually going to fit, you know, how my brain works, what's my capacity is, right? And then also thinking about the time that you have given the season of life that you're in. I do want to share one more example here that I think is important. I'm working with someone right now, and we're starting to build their business. They're kind of trying to move away from one on one to moving into more of a membership group coaching type model. And one of the first things they told me was, I just really need more time for myself, for their own health, but also to spend time with their family. And the model and idea that they had with how they wanted to do the membership, they were sharing all the ideas. And I was like, whoa. So, like, how much time per week is this actually going to take? Right. They wanted to do weekly sessions, and they wanted to be able to provide all these different things. And I was like, okay, but you wanted to have more time for yourself. And now you're committing yourself to building something that's going to require so much more time and effort on your part than probably just seeing people one on one. And so this is where sitting down and trying to understand, like, what do you really want to build, right? The blueprint, the house that you're dreaming of, what is it you want to build? And then walking through and thinking about, okay, does the offer that I'm thinking of actually help me get to the life that I want? The day to day that I'm experiencing, is that what I want to get into? Or if I really think this is a great option for me, how do I make sure I do this strategically so that I'm not burning myself out, right? And in this example, we talked about things like, do you need to meet once a week with this membership? Maybe you only need to do once a month, right? Also, like, maybe we need to talk to people and find out, do they want to meet weekly? Like, do they want to meet once a month? Do they want to meet once a quarter? I don't know, right? Like, this is where, do we need to commit to such a high level of engagement just because we think we need to provide a lot for the service? It's more about where will they get success, and how will they feel successful with what you give them. Other thing that I would love to encourage you to do, this is something that I have done for myself that has helped immensely, is to give yourself permission to have an off ramp. So anytime you have a new idea, anytime you have something that you want to try or you want to build, giving yourself permission to do a little beta test that has a very, like, set boundary container around it. Like, instead of, now I do online coaching forever and ever, maybe it's, I'm going to have 3 clients this month and see how it goes. Like, just be transparent. Like, I'm going to try coaching and I want to have a couple clients. Do you want to sign up? And then having people sign up for that. That way, if it doesn't work for you, you can just let it go, never talk about it again, right? And if someone asks you about it, you can tell them privately, oh, you know what, it wasn't a good fit for me, and I've chosen to stick with whatever it is you're currently doing, right? This also might be an opportunity where you need to make a tough decision about cutting something that isn't working for you. So this is really hard because maybe you've been doing something for a very long time, people like it, but it just is draining you and it's just not working for you. So maybe it's time to have that tough conversation of, I'm either going to cut this, or maybe it's the tough conversation of, we're changing how we're doing things with this because that's going to be more sustainable. Okay, mistake number 3, this is going to be a good one, is having a marketing or sales process that just, like, completely demolishes you, right? And I have a very personal story about this, where I did a marketing program, and this is kind of where I really got stuck with my businesses. I felt like I had to do things the way that I had learned because I had invested a lot of money into this program, and also it made sense to me to give it a really good try. But it was incredibly dysregulating for me. Essentially, with the method, how it boiled down to with my circumstances was I was going to have to do like 50 cold DMs a day, which is like basically messaging 50 random strangers every single day in order to like have a profitable business. And I was like, this is so hard for me to do. I don't feel like this is really authentic to how I want to run my business. It's also very weird and awkward to be like messaging random strangers and then pitching your business to them. And so, anyways, I know people do this. And I mean, kudos to you if you can do cold outreach, but this was just not a good fit for me. And while I saw the logic in how like having these conversations with people and connecting with people is a really great strategy, could potentially yield higher conversion, it just was not a good fit for me. And so I had to say no. Like I had to stop. I had to stop and pivot and completely change the direction that I needed to go. And I needed to focus on things that I knew I was strong in and things that I enjoyed doing. And as far as like content creation goes, that's also marketing, right? For me, leaning more into things like long form content like this podcast has allowed me to actually enjoy making content again and has allowed me, I think, to create longer term assets that are going to benefit me and I know in the future and be able to reuse. I think being strategic about how you're doing all of that is really important. But if you are basically forcing yourself to do a marketing strategy that does not align with your values, it does not maybe fit essentially like your capacity at this time or the season of life at this time, then you're going to need a different solution that really does work for you. I think another example of this that is a really important one, especially in online business, is this evergreen versus live launching. Okay, so live launching, what I'm going to say is kind of like you usually have some sort of live event, a boot camp, a webinar, or something, right? And then from there, you're offering the bigger ticket item or like a different offer for people to continue working with you. That's live launching. Okay. And then there's evergreen, which is you have some sort of, could be a sales engine of some kind that's just constantly working for you. There's so many different variations of this. It could be there's a pre-recorded webinar, and then, it's basically doing kind of what the live launch does, but it's just like going on in the background. Some people would consider evergreen to be like even email series, like sales email series. You could even think of ManyChat as part of that too, whether it's you're doing DM based kind of sales or whether you're using ManyChat to connect people into your offers, right? Those are automated, potentially evergreen ways of making money. Now, for some people, live launching is incredibly exhausting. And I would say, like, even though I like live launching, it's incredibly exhausting. It's also very time consuming. And the season of life that you're in, it just may not be something that you can do on a regular basis. It's also very high risk. So if you only do live launching, then it's like, okay, if you launch 3 times a year, that's only 3 times a year you're going to make money essentially, right? If you don't have some other ongoing incoming revenue, that's really stressful. Like it's really stressful to bank on you making enough sales 3 times per year. Okay. So for some people, though, live launching is exhilarating and energizing because they get to meet people, they get to connect with people, they love live teaching. And so if they were to do evergreen, even though it seems like nice recurring revenue, like I don't have to be live on camera all the time or whatever, that could also just be like so soul sucking and like so not stimulating for your brain, right? There's no urgency, no deadlines. It's just going, right? You just keep bringing in leads the same exact way and you just keep tinkering with the system until it basically is yielding a higher conversion. And that's all you do. And that honestly can be so boring, especially for someone with ADHD to have something be so like predictable. Even though like predictable revenue sounds nice, the over predictableness of having an evergreen system that is actually working can feel just like, I don't know, it's so boring. And then that's when, especially if you have ADHD, that's an opportunity for your brain to go, I need something new to do, right? And it decides to do something new and you jump ship. So this is where I would say you need to kind of understand what marketing and sales methods actually work really well for your season of life and for your brain, what's stimulating to you, but also like what's doable time wise. And more often than not, maybe you might need a combination of both, right? Not just evergreen, not just live launching. It might be little combos. So you have some incoming revenue on an ongoing basis for some things. And maybe if you love live launching or that's really successful for your business, then you do that like once or twice a year, something that feels more doable for you and accessible for you. Okay, mistake number 4 is just not building for what you need as founder. I mean, it sounds really basic and kind of maybe obvious, but if you're not thinking about what your capacity is, if you're not thinking about how much time do I really realistically have in a week, and you're not either building something that fits what you can do, or you're not being strategic in a way that says like, okay, this is the real capacity or like the real limitations I have. How could I still leverage whatever it is to get more out of what I can do, right? And this is where I think a lot of people feel like I have to do it this particular method or this particular way, whatever it is that they're even doing, whether it's executing their offer, doing the marketing, doing the sales. And if you're not really building for exactly what you want, this is the blueprint, right? If you're not building the house that you want to build for yourself, the business that you want for yourself, then you're going to end up with that really ugly McMansion with the 20 bathrooms, right? And maybe like no kitchens or something like that, right? Like you need to think about, and this could be a moment where you pause the podcast. You need to think about like, what is the house that you really want to build? And this goes back to that first question I even asked you and asked you to pause and reflect on. Like, does it match? Does the image of what I want it to look like fit what it is that I'm currently building and doing? And if not, then this is an opportunity to really think about what are some changes that you can make so that you can show up and be there for yourself, that you can take care of your health and your well-being. The other thing I want to say is that building something that is intrinsically motivating to you is very good for your health and well-being. This kind of gets into research related to like flow state, for example, but basically if you are doing activities that are intrinsically motivating to you and that it's almost like time just like passes because you are just enjoying doing what you're doing and you do it for the sake of just you enjoy it, this has been shown time and time again to be very beneficial for your mental health, even your physical health. And so this is an opportunity for you to build something that actually would benefit your own health and well-being, even though it's your work and your livelihood, right? And so the more you can kind of tap into that, the more you can basically turn your work from something that was taking away from you to giving you something back in return. Mistake number 5. Okay, similar to 4, but just a little bit more specific here. We're talking about building without actually factoring in the season of life that you're currently in. And what I mean by this is, and I think this is something that's really important for you to maybe kind of like soak in, which is you are not your business. Okay, you are way more than your business. Yes, you are a business owner, but you are not your business. You are maybe a parent to your children. You might be a child who has to take care of their aging parent or a parent or a family member with a disability, right? You might be a caregiver. You also might be someone who's a weekend warrior and who likes to play basketball or is kind of like a part-time painter on the side, right? You are so much more than your business. And whatever the season of life that you're in, the responsibilities, the other things that you have to do in your life, that is equally as important, if not more important, than your business. And I know your business is where your livelihood comes from, right? But this is that kind of moment where, you can stop and really think about like, what are your values? What are your priorities that are outside of doing the work that you do? Because a lot of us start businesses because we want more time with our family, or we want more time to travel, or we want more time to engage in activities that are more than just us doing work. So what is that? And are you making space for that? And how could you really design your business build to allow you to fulfill those roles, to be more than your business and to not just be your business, right? To be all the other things that make you you. Okay, so this is so important because these are also things that having more roles outside of yourself are really protective for against burnout or in seasons of life where, like, I mean, heaven forbid, right? Like, let's say your business just disappears somehow. I don't know what that means or what that looks like, but if your sole identity is this business and it no longer exists and you don't have these other roles and things there to kind of like fall back into, then you're going to feel really lost and it's going to be really hard. And so having these other things can be really protective for your own personal well-being and mental health as well. All right. So of those 5 different things, you probably felt like at least one of them was something where you're like, oh yeah, that's me. That's why either my business is like running me to the ground, why it's like sucking me dry, basically. Or it might be something where if you are starting your online business, maybe for the first time, those are the reasons things you're trying to avoid. You already had this 9 to 5 that was already like burning you out, anyways, and you were looking for more of that freedom, more of a business that actually is going to like energize you, light you up, and give you what it is that you want, right? So these are the things I would love for you to sit there and reflect on and think about as you're building a business that actually is going to be sustainable for you. Well, thank you so much for joining me today on this episode. I hope it was really helpful for you and you had an opportunity to actually start like working on improving your business or getting started in a way that's going to like basically build a really good foundation for yourself. And I can't wait to see you in some of those other future episodes. And until then, stay not so typical as a solopreneur.